because yesterday I did over 600 kilometers in this car and it just munched up the miles. And what's more is it got about 4.9 litres per 100 kilometers, which in old money terms is about 57 miles to the gallon. Hello and welcome back to the DoneDeal YouTube channel. I'm David OC and today we're reviewing the all new Nissan Qashqai. Now I know what you're thinking, it doesn't look all that new. Well, there's a few small facelifts, things like the front, the rear and the steering wheel. So Nissan Qashqai prices start at about 29,000 euros including delivery. We'll talk about financing options later in the video, but for now, if you want to see any listings of Nissan Qashqais, you can click the link here. We're going to check out the boot, then the rear, then the front, and then we'll go for a drive. At the rear are looking good, so it's very similar to the old one. However, it does have some slightly upgraded taillights which do add a little bit more uniqueness to it. Now when you open up the boot, you have to be careful as you could ring that little alarm. Don't really know what that's about. Now space, it's good. You've got no load lip. It's got 430 litres, which is a lot. You'll fit both of your suitcases in, absolutely no problem. However, it is worth mentioning that's not all that much bigger than a Volkswagen Golf, and considering this is an SUV, that's probably a little bit disappointing. What's not disappointing, however, is the functionality of the boot. So you've got this kind of folding section here, so you can put your shopping bags, they won't roll around. You've also got shopping bags hooked here and here, and what's more is you can actually increase the size of the boot by basically taking them out. Now, another great feature, as an optional extra, you can have a spare wheel, which is fantastic. The other thing is it's got folding rear seats in a 60/40 split. However, it's worth noting that the Skoda Karak can actually take out those rear seats. So a little bit more space in that. Considering it's a competitor, it's definitely worth mentioning. When you open up the back door, the first thing that takes your eye is this incredible looking Nappa leather. Now, obviously this is an additional extra, but it is a sight to behold. When you sit in, knee space, absolutely no shortage of that. However, when you slowly put your head back, it meets the ceiling. Now that's because this has the optional panoramic sunroof. So it's not a massive issue if I really think about it, because for the most part, it's probably gonna be children back here. However, if you have some adult children or you plan to use the car for business and have colleagues, this might be something to consider. In terms of storage, there's a decent amount, but nothing crazy. You have a little spot there, you have a pouch here. You can put your drink holder in there, and you also have two more drink holders here in the folding down armrest. So all in all, it's a nice place to be in the back here. However, there is a little bit of compromised headroom. In the front, again, those Nappa leather seats, they just catch your eye and they're absolutely beautiful. Now, this is obviously an optional extra, but they are fully electric. Not only that, but they have two memory options. So if you're sharing the car with your wife or your husband, you can have your preferred sitting options. Okay, let's begin with storage. So you have two drink holders here. You've drink holders in the side compartment. Now, this center component right here has to be the largest section. You go down there and I can nearly fit the majority of my arm in, which is pretty insane. You also have more storage here and a glove box, which is pretty normal. In terms of features, charging, things like that, you have a 12-volt socket here. You do have another one in here, as well as an AUX cord and a USB point. So things are looking good. Now the steering wheel. So this is the flat bottom steering wheel, as Nissan like to call it, the D steering wheel. It also has a manual gearbox, this particular version. You can get an automatic, however, it's fantastic. And actually the gear knob is a little bit higher than most cars, but it makes it for a little bit of an easier drive. We'll talk more about the driving in a short while. Next up is the infotainment system. It's okay, but it's nothing special. Now, what I mean by that is everything works as it should. You've got your sat nav, but the problem is the touch sensitivity on the sat nav isn't fantastic. When you click the radio, obviously you've got your radio, you've got all your different options in terms of Bluetooth connectivity. All that is there. Your phone works, you can play your own music, like there's no issues there, but it just isn't as good in terms of graphics, and it definitely doesn't feel as high quality as some of its German rivals. So all in all, I'd say it's good, but it's not fantastic. But at the end of the day, Nissan have sold over 2,700 of these in the beginning of this year of 2019. So there is a lot of people who are absolutely more than happy with this infotainment system. When it comes to driving the Qashqai, well, first of all, there's no issues with a hill start because it has hill start assist. Now, as you pull off, you'll notice that the Qashqai very much feels like a Qashqai. Now, what I mean by that is it's nothing special to drive. You don't feel like you're in a massive SUV, but you also don't feel like you're in a sports car. It's quite predictable. There's a little bit of body roll around the bends, as you can feel there, but nothing too crazy. Now, the one thing that's absolutely worth mentioning is yesterday I did over 600 kilometers in this car, and it just munched up the miles. And what's more is it got about 4.9 litres per 100 kilometers, which in old money terms is about 57 miles to the gallon, which is pretty good if you ask me. A lot of manufacturers claim outrageous figures, but 57 real world miles per gallon is very good. Now, to drive, there is now available in a automatic transmission. However, the manual one, and I'm not a big fan of manuals, but this manual transmission is fantastic. The clutch is light. The gear shifts, it's quite a throw if I'm to be completely honest, but it's right there. As I explained earlier, it's got the kind of higher gear stick, which makes it very easy to drive. And I think that's the word I'd use to summarize it. It is a very easy car to drive. Obviously, there are other options in terms of engines. There's petrol versions, diesel versions, but if it was me, I'd definitely advise this 1.5 diesel engine. It's not got a lot of high-end power, but it does have a lot of power in first and second, so it will actually feel almost like a 160 or 170 brake horsepower car in those earlier gears. However, that's then suffered when you're in the higher gears and you feel like you're driving a 70 brake horsepower car. All in all though, to drive, it's very easy, it's very smooth, and it's very predictable. Now it's time to look at 3 of our favourite and 3 of our least favourite things about the Nissan Qashqai. Let's begin with the latter, our least favourite. Number 1 is these really nice 18-inch alloys, and although they make the car look a lot sportier, they compromise the ride massively. You can get a lot of road noise from them, and so for that reason they're one of my least favourite things, although I do actually quite like them. Number 2 is when you pull up and you park. You turn it off and it sometimes beeps and sometimes doesn't, and I can't get my head around it despite having the car for a few days. Sometimes I'll go to lock it and it won't lock and it'll just beep at me. However, for the point of this test, it is actually working. And number 3 is that unfortunately Nissans don't hold their value as well as some of the other cars on the market in Ireland. Now, according to the most recent DoneDeal motor industry report, Nissan don't even feature on the top 5 or top 6 cars that hold their value. So something like a Skoda Octavia, although not completely competitive to this, will hold its value a lot more, and so it's worth considering something like that. Maybe you can get the Qashqai, maybe you can get the Tiguan. I'm just saying there's other options that might hold their value a little bit better. But I wouldn't go rushing too fast into the competitors, as there's a lot of toys on this car that are brilliant. Number 1, keyless unlocking. So if you've got shopping bags and kid seats and all this other stuff going on, you can get in and not worry about the key, which is fantastic. Number 2 is this blind spot detector. This is unbelievable. So when you're cruising down the motorway, and if you're a little bit tired and you don't want to look over your shoulder, this will actually tell you when there's something in there. However, I would advise looking over your shoulder anyway, as you don't want to rely too much on technology. And number 3, well, it's these ISOFIX points. They're so easy to get at, and they just pop right out, which makes getting that child seat in a little bit easier. And what's more is look how wide the door opens. So it is very child seat accessible and child seat approved. I often like to talk about financing options in these reviews because I know most of us can't afford to buy a car outright. However, I have been proven wrong, as according to a recent DoneDeal survey, over 46% of people when buying a new car are opting to buy it with cash. Nonetheless, I'm going to talk you through some options. So, as we said, this car is about 29,000 euros on the road today with the opening spec. So what's that in financing? Well, if you choose PCP, it's going to be about an 8 or 9,000 euro down payment. However, the good news is you're only going to be paying about 298 euros a month, which is very affordable. The one thing I will mention is that's for the opening model. So it does come with obviously your metallic paint and things like that. But for something like this, you're probably going to pay a lot more, as this has things like those Napa leather seats, the rear privacy glass, the sunroof. It kind of ups the level, and of course you'll end up getting closer to around the 40,000 mark by the time you customize it to the way you want it. In summary, the Nissan Qashqai is a brilliant car. It won't break the bank, it's easy to drive, anyone can get into it and munch up the miles, and they'll have a great time doing it. Now, there is a couple things to be wary of. Things like the larger alloys, they're going to compromise your ride, and I'd avoid them at all costs. The second thing to take into consideration is there are rumours that in 2020 there's going to be an all-new Nissan Qashqai. If that is the case, then potentially hold off buying one, but I'll leave that decision to you. Nonetheless, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the review. Any feedback is more than welcome in the comments. If you've owned or have ever had any experience with Nissan Qashqai, we'd love to hear from you. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.